Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from Group 5. We will present our discussion about sporting areas and our group consists of Tinda Kurniawati, Tia Ustarseh, Fitrina Insani, Indah Wafik Aziza, and Olandina.
1. Exploring your knowledge and experience. Knowledge tastes sweeter when personal experience is added. The effort will make your presentation more reliable as well as more human. From your experience, you can illustrate the topic being presented with personal and the real facts, the facts that you have really experienced. However, you are not allowed to personalize it. Outside reference and source are also important to support your personal experience. Here is the sample of a student's speech derived from his own personal experience in struggling with diabetes. He parts his point on how a person can live with the disease on a daily basis. Scorn, getting access to library resource and internet. Exploring college and university library is great to find the treasure of collection of books, magazines, articles, journal, newspaper, encyclopedias, dictionaries, and other publications. Not to mention are the collection of online journal, electronic library, and the like that are part of the library collection. A good and well-managed library usually subscribes some general indexes or general periodical database, such as the Reader Guide to Periodical Literature, ProQuiz Research Library, Academic Search, Public Affairs Information Service International. You may also refer yourself to some free virtual library on internet. Here are 7 virtual library website address that you might find helpful as you work on your spec or presentation. 1. Librarian index to the internet. 2. Argus Clearinghouse. 3. Internet Public Library. 4. Infomain. 5. www Virtual Library. 6. Social Skin Information Gateway. 7. Britannica.com.
By using a media search engine, you can scan a dozen or more search engines simultaneously. Here are some of famous media search engines. Number 1, Talkpile. Number 2, Inversewine. Number 3, Invisible Web. Number 4, Xquick Media Search. Number 5, Media Crawler. Number 6, Zephy Search. Number 7, Provision. And number 8, Cyber 411. And the next is supporting your ideas. Supporting your ideas with facts, statistics, data, or even testimony is very crucial since you have to convince your audience that you don't only tell them some nonsense thing. In that way, you will demonstrate a mature and good speak making. You can make use of at least 3 variants of supporting material: examples, status, and testimony. An example is a specific case used to illustrate or to reference a group of people, ideas, conditions, experience, or the like. There are 3 kinds of example. Number 1, brief example. Number 2, double V extent example. And number 3, hypothetical example. A brief example is a specific case reference to illustrate a point. The following excerpt uses a brief example to illustrate the nature of recent advance in creating artificial limb for accident victims.
An extended example is usually in the forms of a story, narrative, or anecdote developed at some length to illustrate a point. Here is an example from a student's speech about the amazing similarities identical twins can have. Instead of simply saying identical twins are a lot alike, the description with an extended example conveys this message more vividly. Finally, a hypothetical example is an example that describes an imaginary or fictitious situation. Here is an example how a student's speech describes and illustrates the need for college students to protect themselves against crime. Statistics are numerical data. The data are used to provide valid and accurate evidence on a certain point. However, statistical data can jeopardize your speech if they are taken from unreliable source or it turns out that your data are already old-fashioned. Here is an example how statistics can be used to clarify or strengthen a speaker's point. To illustrate the Indonesian teacher shortage, as started by the Department of Culture and Education. 200,000 new teachers will need to be hired each year for the next 5 years to keep pace with the growing number of students.
Three main questions must be taken into consideration when you decide to use statistics to illustrate your point. 1. Are the statistics representative? 2. Are statistical measures used correctly? 3. Are the statistics from a reliable source? Only if you mind these criteria, you can convince your audience with your statistic display. To make you even more skillful in using statistics, here are some tips. 1. Use statistics to quantify your idea. 2. Use statistics carefully. 3. Identify the source of your statistic. 4. Explain your statistic. 5. Elaborate and sharp complicated statistic. 6. Use visual aids to clarify statistical trends. Testimony is quotation or paraphrase used to support a point. There are three kinds of testimony. 1. Expert testimony. 2. Peer testimony. 3. Testimony from direct quotation. Expert testimony is a testimony from people who are recognized experts in their field. When you want to convince that Lapindo mud should not be dumped to the sea because it contains poisonous substance, you can quote some expert research statements about the composition of this dangerous substance. The statement of scientists who have made thorough investigation on this will make your speech more persuasive. Will peer testimony is a testimony from ordinary people with first-hand experience or insight on a topic. And direct quotation is a testimony that is presented word for word. For example, if you want to communicate the barrier faced by people with physical disabilities, you need to invite statements from people with first-hand experience, such as the following.
Isaac Perlman, the world-renowned violinist whose legs are paralyzed, once said, "When you are in a wheelchair, people don't talk to you. Perhaps they think it is contagious, or perhaps they think crippled legs mean a crippled mind. But whatever the reason, they treat you like a thing." The statements from Isaac Perlman above is presented as a direct quotation. In addition to this way, testimony can also be paraphrased, so you can just present the gist of the person's ideas in your own words. Here is the example. Writing in Audubon magazine, Peter Bourne, president of Global Water, a nonpartisan educational group in Washington, D.C., said most Americans do not yet realize the extent, and urgency of the water problem. At the present rate, he says we are headed for a crisis that will change the way we live in every part of the nation. Inserting testimony in your speech can be one of the effective ways to influence people, since most people tend to respect the opinions of people who have a special knowledge or experience on the topic at hand. Recognizing this tendency, well experienced public speakers often use an expert testimony was a fallacy, taking an expert judgment as the justification for making an argument advanced by the speaker sound. To ease your way in using testimony, here are some tips. 1. Quote or paraphrase accurately. 2. Testimony from qualified source. 3. Use testimony from unbiased source. 4. Identify the people you quote or paraphrase.
Thank you.